episode of Facts Not Included. I'm your host, Peter Cabranes, and today it's just gonna be me. It's just gonna be me. The only reason it's just gonna be me today, and I promise the guys are coming back very shortly, is because we're all going out to some party today. And as at the moment of recording this, the guys are on their way, and so it wouldn't have made sense to record while they're on the trains because just wouldn't work out. So yeah, so it's just gonna be me today. We all did see the movie together at the same time, so that kind of helps in the storytelling here. I do have what the guys thought of the movie, Blackkklansman by Spike Lee, a Spike Lee joint. Isn't that amazing that he doesn't have to call his movies or films, like a film by Spike Lee? It's a joint. It's because I don't know the reasoning behind it, but the only thing I can think of is that all of his movies are some sort of collaboration with other people. Like, it's never just him. And so I think that's where that comes from. I might be really wrong, and I'm just sounding like an idiot, but I think that's where that comes from, that whole idea of using the word joint. And just because it's just a cool word to use. So Blackkklansman is what I'm going to call it. I don't know if that's the actual proper way to call the movie, because the three Ks that are in it. So I don't know if it's like a Black Klansman. I don't know. I just sound like an idiot right now. I know. I'm gonna get a lot of freaking messages from people, but yeah, no. The movie Blackkklansman came out, I think, August 10th or something like that. We didn't get to check it out. I was away in Kansas City and St. Louis. So if you guys haven't checked out that episode where I discuss and talk about the wonderful, wonderful place that is the Midwest, definitely check out that episode. But I was away. Didn't get to see any movies while I was there. I really wanted to. I was next to a couple of cool movie theaters, but I didn't get to do that. And so when I came back, I told the guys, I was like, we have to do an episode on this movie. Been hearing a lot of good things. It's a Spike Lee movie, so we definitely have to check it out. And they were like, yeah, they really wanted to see the movie as well. So we decided to go check it out. And so Blackkklansman, to me, walking into that movie, I think Mike and I were talking about this. We were, for some reason, given the idea that it was going to be some crazy, action movie. In the sense of, there's going to be a lot of shooting, there's going to be a lot of explosions, and there's going to be a lot of, just things related to, action. We didn't get any of that, really, in this movie. It's a very tamed movie in regards to its action, because that's not what the movie is trying to get at. The movie is much smarter than an action movie. You get that right away when the movie begins, with Alec Baldwin playing, I'm not sure if the character he was playing was a real person. I feel stupid not to know that. But Alec Baldwin plays some sort of doctor character who's clearly a racist, clearly hates Jewish people, black people, just anything that is not Anglo-European blood. This man is spewing hate, but while he's doing it in a very, to put it in modern terms, a very Alex Jones way. So if you know anything about Alex Jones, he's a big conspiracy theorist who believes certain things in American history and world history never happened, and then everything is just a ruse by the Jewish government and Jewish media and stuff like that to puppet the rest of us. Stupid stuff, but, there's people out there that believe him. And so it reminded me of a lot of Alex Jones-esque type of material. It was pretty funny because, again, going into this movie, I didn't know what this movie was going to be like. I didn't know the tone so much. I got from the trailers that maybe I'll be able to laugh, but I didn't think I was going to be able to straight up laugh throughout this movie. Because I didn't know if the tone was going to be super serious, super surreal. No jokes allowed. But this movie is clearly wanting you to feel uncomfortable and comfortable at the same time. There's a lot of moments in this movie where okay, I shouldn't be laughing. And there's plenty of moments where you're like, oh, Spike Lee put that there so I could feel relieved now after the last tension. I could laugh now. And so because and we'll get to it later. The ending of the movie is a total 180. Once the movie ends itself, and then when it hits where it hits, but we'll talk about it later. And so the whole Alec Baldwin thing just has me dying, and so I'm like, okay, it makes me understand. Okay, maybe this is somewhat of a comedy, or some. I mean, not so much a comedy itself, but um, it will allow me to laugh a bit, and that's all right, cool, you know. And then the movie goes into right that again, you're laughing, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we're not playing games here. Um, what I'm talking about is like right after, excuse me, right after Baldwin's piece, you know, you have the main character Ron and these two men, the chief of police, and oh man, I forget who this man is supposed to be playing, but this other gentleman, and they're basically, you know, recruiting cops, and they're recruiting this one dude who's black, first black cop in the town, in the history of that town, and they basically asked him, you know, how would you feel if this happened or that happened, and he's very polite. You know, and they asked him, like, do you do drugs? And he's like, no. Do you drink? Only socially. And a bunch of questions like that. And then they asked him the real question. They asked him the real question. And from what I gathered from this movie takes place in the 70s. And so they asked him, you know, if they called you the N-word, like, how would you respond? Right away, the movie goes from, oh, we're not playing games now. This is a very serious topic. Okay, cool. And then his response is like, well, I guess I'll say something, you know. And if I have to back down, I'll back down, you know. Which is a respectable answer, I suppose, you know, for a cop, for a man at that time and that period of time and whatnot. I wouldn't know because I'm not black, so I wouldn't know how I would respond. But he gave his answer, and it those first few minutes of the movie, that conversation, that examination of him, gives you everything you need to know about this character. Spike Lee did not, because the next scene right away is he walks in to the office, his boss's office. He already has the job, and he's like, I want to leave. Well, he's doing paperwork and stuff in the filing area, and the next scene is like, I want to move up. And so Spike Lee, all he needed was to set up that conversation of who this character is. A very humble, a very polite individual, who could essentially be friends with anyone, is not, you know, is not your stereotypical cop attitude. You know, he's nice, you know, and so Spike Lee only needed those few minutes to set that up, and he doesn't need to do it for the rest of the movie. That's why Spike Lee's so smart, right? So he sets that up early, and then we go into this whole, like, you know, he wants to do these little things. He wants to get out of the filing area because he realized that, you know, he'll die in there, and you know. And so that's not something for him. But the movie does a great job of me relating to this character. And again, not being black, for a movie that clearly is made for a time in this country that we're dealing with so many of the same things that are happening in this movie that happened in the 70s, that happened in the 80s, that happened in the 60s, that happened in the 50s. But so many things that are happening again in our time. Probably more so or less so. I'm not sure. I didn't live in those times. But for someone that is not black to then relate to all of this is simple because we're on a human level. We're all just humans. And so, but for me to empathize so strongly with this character is a true testament to Spike Lee's ability as a filmmaker to be very inclusive in what he does. Adam Driver's character, you know, Kylo Ren. Adam Driver's character is also another excellent character developed by Spike Lee. He's supposed to be this Jewish cop, but that's not what makes him up. You see, he says it very clearly later in the movie that, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I never felt Jewish. I just, because Ron calls him out. He's like, you should have a hand in this fight too. But then later on, he tells him that, like, hey, yeah, I'm Jewish by name, but I never felt Jewish. I'm not circumcised. I'm not, or unless he is. But I think he did say that. Like, he's never had a bar mitzvah. He's never been to a bar mitzvah. He's never had these quote Jewish experiences that a Jewish boy and a man would have had at that point in his life. So he doesn't really feel like he has a hand in this fight, but he's truly pissed off. But it's different because, and I think the reason I bring that up, like, it's a very clear testament to what people deal with in life. Because there's a lot of people, and it same thing goes with Ron's character and the girl that was the president of the community society at the college. Just because I'm black, I'm talking about them, Ron and the girl. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I'm gonna have the same feelings or the same views as you. Just because we're all black doesn't mean we all think the same. Just because we're all white doesn't mean we all think the same. And just because we're all Jewish, and just because we're all this, and just because we're all that. It's very clear moments in this movie where they let you know that. They remind you that. Because it's very important. Just because I'm XYZ does not mean I agree with you because you're the same thing. They do that very clearly in this movie. There are moments where I thought that the cops that were being extremely nice and helpful to Ron were at some point going to be distasteful and go against him, just because I just felt that way, being that they are, again, my fault, being that they are white cops. Maybe they'll somehow say something wrong to him because he messed up at some point. But they didn't. They stuck to his side and they kept with him. But yes, this goes to that point I was just making, that just because they're a certain color or a certain background doesn't mean they're all going to be on the same page. And again, Spike Lee does a great job of reminding you that. An excellent job of reminding you that. Look at all the white people in this movie. Most of them, because the movie's portraying the KKK, most of them are terrible people. And then you have the other ones. Oddly enough, most of the cops are very good people. At least, that's the way the movie portrays it. And the movie does probably one of the most powerful moments of this whole movie is very early on when the gentleman comes in to do the talk at the college. And Spike Lee, I really hope this was Spike Lee's idea. While the gentleman is speaking about things that definitely needed to be said, and have been said for decades now. When Spike Lee decided, again, hopefully Spike Lee came up with this, because I'm giving him credit now, to show individuals' heads as they're listening and hearing what this man's saying, and they're just soaking it all in. It's very powerful. Like, he easily could have just not done that and just kept the straight, clear the regular background, but he blacked it out in the background. Basically, all you have is bits of their hair showing, but then, their face in awe. And just in love with what this gentleman is saying. This very powerful individual. And they're just in love with it. That said so much to me. That spoke volumes to me. And I think that's probably one of the greatest moments in this movie. So I want to get into what the guys were saying, because being that they're not here, and I really wish we were able to do a show together. So Antonio, actually, let's get to what Mike said first. So Mike took it to a meta place. No, his notes are that the movie started out and ended very surreal, and I think what he's talking about, if I'm not mistaken, is like the whole beginning of the Alec Baldwin stuff, and it talking about the race relations at that time, and his character making a mockery of everything because he's such a bigoted individual, and then the way it ends at the very end with the documentary, the truth of what has been going on in this country, basically ever since Donald Trump took over, like the extensive white supremacy. Wow, that's so powerful. It blows my mind. And another thing Mike said was that nothing really happens in the movie regarding the plot, but that's not a bad thing. And he has a good point. Like, the movie doesn't really go anywhere other than there's no real big villain, there's no real big bad. The plot seems to go from character becomes cop, character infiltrates the KKK. KKK finds out for 2 seconds who he is, but not really. Bomb goes off. End of movie. That's essentially the most, like, that's the most simplistic way you could describe what happened in the movie. And so I think, yeah, Mike's probably right. Not much happens in regards to the movie's plot. Not much is really... The goal of this character is essentially to tear down the KKK in some way. And in some way he does that. In his own way, he tears down essentially the chapter in which he was in. But that's basically all he's able to accomplish. So yeah. And then Mike wrote also, villains kill themselves. And, essentially... I guess if you can call the big bad was probably the guy, I forget his name, the guy that realized Ron wasn't Ron, or at least just started to suspect Ron wasn't Ron early on. The individual that kept thinking he was Jewish and they wanted to do all these tests on him and stuff like that. That guy, I guess you could say he was the big bad, but whatever. He winds, obviously at the end they wind up killing themselves by not realizing that his wife placed the bomb right next to the car instead of putting it in the mailbox where she was supposed to put it. And so, which is, again, Spike Lee's great way of, I think Antonio kept saying it when it was happening. He was like, poetic justice. And that's exactly what it is. You get what you get. Karma's a bitch, as they say, right? And so, the characters really get their due at the end, So that's what Mike said. So I want to get into what Antonio was thinking about the movie. He overall enjoyed this film. Spike Lee once again makes another generational hit, just like he did with, Do the Right Thing. And yeah, I would have to agree. I think another movie that Spike Lee did recently is Chirac, which is like the Chicago, what's going on in Chicago and it being basically a war zone in the United States and no one really doing anything about it. I think I haven't seen that movie, but from what I got from everyone who's seen that, understands that is another one of those very important movies of our time type of thing. And I really hope a lot of people get to see this movie, Blackkklansman. I really, really hope people get to see it because it's like, and I keep saying this, it's more than what you see on screen. And it's not like Spike Lee was trying to subdue or hide anything, but it's more than what you see. It's more than just Ron Sterling or Stallworth. Sorry. It's more than that. It has everything to do with what is going on today. There's moments of this movie that they mention, like Make America Great Again type of stuff, or they don't say it clearly. They're like, we have to bring this country, we have to make it great again. Stuff like that, and the whole idea of America first. They mention that constantly throughout this, especially towards the end. America first, which is something that Trump touts all the time. The whole idea of cops killing innocent black people, and the idea of cops being disgusting people. And so that is something that they're consistently talking about. And it's something that they mention over and over again, like, yeah, it's happening now, meaning like in the 70s. And it's always happened. And it's like, literally that exact sentence could be said today, that it's happening now and it's always happened. And the whole idea that it's just something that is continued and likely will continue for a while. It's sad It's very sickening and sad to know that. But like, until something is really done about it, it will continue to happen. And there are many sides in which you could go about it, and that is what this movie is trying to show you, that you can do it in more ways than just one. You could do it more ways than just two ways. There's so many different routes in which we could take down the terrible racist bigots. And I don't know exactly where Spike Lee is politically in regards to. Yes, he's Democratic, it seems, some sort of progressive or liberal mindset Spike Lee has. But I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know where Spike Lee fits in politically, and I don't need to know. The reason I only bring that up is because, though, let's say he is progressive, let's say he is, but to what degree? You know what I'm saying? So, like, maybe, my viewpoints are very similar to Spike Lee's, but Spike Lee is like this total not radical person, and so it all varies on the spectrum politically. I don't want to get into this whole political conversation because that's not what this podcast is about. But it all varies on. It goes back to what I was saying. Just because you're white or just because you're black doesn't mean we all think the same. Like, not every black person thinks the same. Not every white person thinks the same as other white people. So it goes back to that. It goes back same thing politically. The girl from the group was all about we have to arm ourselves, we have to get violent, we have to do this, and the cop, Ron, was like, no, I don't think so. I think we need to do this way. And other people were like agreeing with him, and other people were agreeing with her. And I personally, looking at me as a human, I don't know. I don't know which way was the right way or which is the right way. I like to think that diplomacy works, but then in other cases that doesn't work. I don't know, and that's clear that this is an internal thing that both sides have been dealing with for years, and I don't know. I think this movie helps the conversation. I think it does, because I think Spike Lee did an excellent job of getting past the plot of the movie. I think that wasn't his main concern. I don't think his main concern was dealing so much with the plot of the movie, but more so the little crumbs and pieces that surround it. I think that was his main goal here, was to give you a lens into what people like that are going through, not only today, but then, and what can we do about it? Because I want to talk about that ending, because he totally freaked out my theater. And it goes to what Antonio said, is that it's a movie that needed to be out right now because of what is happening currently politically in the United States. And that ending made because the way the movie ends, he finally tells the head of the KKK that he was black the whole time and he screwed him over. So he tells him that, and then the movie ends, and then from what I understand, it ends right there, and then it goes into this riots from Charlottesville, 2017, and everything that happened, and crisp footage from those days and what's been going on in the country. And my theater went from laughing hysterically from the scene before to quickly, and I'd say quickly, dead silent. Because we realized this is not part of this is not the actual movie. This is stuff that, okay, all right. Everyone, white, black, everyone, not a single person spoke or said a thing. Everyone stopped eating their popcorn. Everyone stopped drinking. Everyone stopped everything, because they realized this is a very serious and powerful moment that Spike Lee wants us to see. Because some people probably had no idea of those images on screen. And it left you, first of all, at least for me, and I'm sure about the guys, but it left me feeling, one, disgusted because not at anyone else other than the country. You know, the fact that this is still happening, really. But, not surprised. But also it left me feeling humble, knowing that I just saw a movie that had the guts to show that at the end. Because not every movie that will deal with this stuff is going to show that. But Spike Lee didn't have to show it either. Spike Lee didn't have to. But the fact that he did, I'm happy about that. I'm not happy that any of it happened, of course, but I'm happy that he showed it. I'm happy that he showed people. Because whether a little kid's watching that, an adult, or whoever, they're going to know that this is serious business that we're dealing with right now, and we gotta work with it. We gotta deal with it. And one way of doing that is by reminding people that it's happening, and reminding people that it happened. And so, Spike Lee, man, I love you for that, man. But yeah, so Antonio also mentions that even if the main character wins his individual battle, he eventually loses the war because the cycle will continue, like we've seen. We're continuing to see in real life, and he's right. He's right. He may have gotten the girl, but then he didn't. But then he did, because it was weird the way it ends with the It ends with the gun, sticking out the gun to the cross burning. She was just about to say, like, I can't deal with you because you're gonna still be a cop, and I don't think I could live like that. And then they both grab their guns and they're about to shoot some motherfuckers up. Though he may have gotten the girl, though he may have completed his mission in taking down that chapter of the KKK, he ultimately didn't really succeed because it's still going on, and it will continue to happen in his life, and it's bittersweet in a sense. He did win his individual battle, but at what cost? At what cost? Did he strengthen the opposition? Did he not? Because the real life Ron Stallworth, because the movie's loosely based off of the individual. A lot of people have been looking into that and what it really means, what it really meant in real life. Well, some people are like, well, he didn't do that good of a thing. If anything, he hurt he helped the opposition and hurt himself. But I won't get into that because that's more political stuff that we're not going to talk too much about in this film review. But yeah, so I don't know. We can go on forever, digging deeply politically about this film, and I don't want to do that on an individual podcast. I wanted the guys to be here to talk about that, but they're not, so we're going to probably leave it here. Hands down, for me, my favorite movie of 2018, because it makes you think. Hence why this whole podcast episode has been a ramble of nonsense about me just going back and forth in regards to political stuff. This movie is probably my favorite movie of 2018. It is by far the most compelling film I've seen. It makes you think more than any movie has made me think this year. And I like movies that do that. If you know me, I like movies that do that. So for me, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Mr. Antonio Connolly gives it an 8.5 out of 10. And Mike was too busy to give a rating, which is fine. But I knowing Mike, probably up there with those ratings. I don't think it's Antonio's favorite movie of the year, and I don't think it's Mike's, but it most certainly is my favorite movie of 2018 so far. It's going to take a bit for something to knock it off now. But I do have to do like a year in review. At the end of the year, we're going to look at some of the movies that came out and some of the movies that we saw and see where it lies there at the end. But that's not what's important about this movie. What's important about this movie is the message that it gave and the message that it told and the message it was trying to convey. And I think it succeeded in all of that. Say what you want to say about the way it goes about telling the message. But I think it does a pretty superb and excellent job. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. I've been Peter here from Facts Not Included. Make sure your friends are listening to the podcast. Make sure everybody knows about us. Please. Really. I really want that to happen. We adore our fans, the people that do listen to every single episode. Thank you guys so much. We love you guys.